My son thought I didn't see him put a black wrap package in the toolbox, pretended to be calm, and walked away. But with 60 years of experience, I saw the lie in his actions. When I opened the box, what I saw made my blood run cold. Not only because of what it was, but because I knew my son was setting a trap to destroy me, to take over the house and car. He didn't expect what happened next. Before we get into the details, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. I still keep the same morning ritual. I'm up before the sun, brew a black coffee, and stand in the garage breathing slow in front of my electrical tool chest. Pliers, electrical tape, a multimeter, the voltage tester, everything lined up like soldiers. The first light slips through the little window and skims a thin blade of brightness along the cutter's edge. That mix of machine oil, rubber, and metal dust calms me. It's the one part of my life that's never betrayed me. My hand was just touching the lid when footsteps hit the stairs. Kyle came out to the landing, tugged at his shirt, hair still carrying a hint of shampoo. "Up early again, Dad," he said with a grin that tried a little too hard. He wandered over and let his fingers skate across the tools like a kid toying with someone else's toys. "These cutters still sharp, huh?" He slipped a hand under the hinge, bent low. In the reflection of a side cabinet, I caught a second move, his other hand hiding half his torso, opening, sliding a black wrap bundle into the lower tray. Quick, clean, cold. The lid came down with a soft click, a period set perfectly at the end of a sentence. He smiled, put the cutters back. "I'll go change. Busy day. Don't wait up." I didn't answer, just tipped my head. My heart slowed on purpose, the way it does when you're hunting a bad connection in a wall. After he left, I pulled the chest to the bench and grabbed a pair of nitrile gloves from the drawer. The rubber and oil smell snapped me fully awake. I popped the locks. At first glance, nothing looked different. Then I saw it. Black paper tucked under a roll of black tape on the bottom tray. I peeled a corner and opened a clear zip bag. Fine white powder flashed dull under the light. I breathed in, then out. Not every electrician has seen this up close, but every father knows the trouble it brings when it walks into your house. I closed everything exactly as it had been, stepped back, and called Mark Bennett. Mark's been my friend for 30 years, the man I trust when life takes a bad turn. He picked up on the second ring. "Tom, you're up with the birds." "I just found something I never wanted to find," I said. "White powder in my tool chest." Silence for a beat. Then Mark's voice came steady, like someone flipping on a desk lamp. "Listen to me, both as your lawyer and as your oldest friend. Don't take it out of the house. Wear gloves, take time-stamped photos. Put everything back exactly as it was. If anything happens, cooperate completely. You don't need to be a hero. You need to stay safe. And if you want me there, I'll drive over." "I've got it," I said. "Thanks, Mark." I hung up and stood still until the hum of the garage AC filled the quiet. On the bench, my car keys lay exactly where I'd left them. I'd been staring at them last night over grilled chicken. Kyle had pushed a piece of breast around his plate with a fork like he used to do as a kid. "Dad," he said, eyes slipping off mine, "your car, if we sell it now, we can get a good price. I need to cover something, just for a few days. I'll square it by the weekend." "That car is how I live," I told him. "If you need money, say how much and why. Selling the car isn't the answer." He shoved his chair back. Wood screeched. "You never understand," he snapped, and disappeared upstairs. I stayed with the keys and the smell of dish soap, the heat advisory looping on TV. I stepped into the garage again, started to pull the door, but stopped and flattened myself against the wall under the stairs. Kyle's voice bled out of his room, low, quick. "Yeah, Victor, I know. Sunday. The old man's stubborn, but once it's done, I'll get the house and the car." He paused, then spoke to someone else. "Nate, trust me. Last weekend was bad luck. I'll make it back. A few more days. Yeah, the bag's ready." A heavy rumbled through the phone, then silence. My back felt cold, like leaning into poured concrete. He threw on a jacket and headed out. I went into his room. Sweat and cheap soap clung to the air. Papers everywhere. He's been like that since grade school. I sifted just enough to see a fat wad of betting slips banded with a rubber loop, red numbers crowding wins and losses, an ivory IOU stamped in red, Victor Delgado's mark. I shot photos from above and close on the smeared stamp. No need to dig deeper. I put everything back, closed the door, and returned to the garage. Gloves on, chest open. I lifted the bundle, resealed the edge with a thin strip of tape. In the mudroom, his soccer bag sat in the corner, a soft duffel I've seen him carry to Wednesday and Friday runs with his buddies. The zipper gave a short, dry rasp. I set the bundle deep, covered it with a practice shirt and shin guards. I didn't add or remove a thing. I closed the zipper and wiped the handles with a tissue. Then I slipped out of his room like nothing had happened. My phone buzzed. Mark. You good? Good, I texted back. Thanks. Later that afternoon, Kyle came down in a fresh tee, hair still damp, cutting through the garage while staring at the ceiling like it had secrets. I'm heading out. He palmed the soccer bag light, one hand hidden, door shut. That night I re-enabled the doorbell camera, the folder filled with little clips of him hauling that same bag in and out. One clip had him tying his laces right under the lens, face blown up to comic size. I didn't watch them all, just checked the timestamps. Clear. Enough. Next morning I was on the porch with my coffee when I heard a phone ring. Kyle answered, talked short, and hung up. Then he walked into the kitchen, dialed a long number, and put on the voice of a model citizen. I need to report narcotics possession, he said, rattling off my full name, age, address, and a description of my tool chest. He sounded like he'd rehearsed in front of a mirror. I didn't move. He flicked a look at me, eyes bright as needles. Whoever was on the other end seemed encouraging. He nodded, hung up, and went upstairs, door half closed. He paused just a second when he noticed I wasn't reacting. 15 minutes later, 2 vehicles pulled up, one city patrol, one federal. A woman with a badge walked to the porch and knocked. Good morning. Detective Avery Coleman, she said. The man beside her, taller by half a head, introduced himself. Agent Torres, we have a warrant based on a tip. I'll cooperate, I said. Kyle hovered behind me, a hand on the doorframe. Dad, what's going on? His voice was soft, half mockery, half concern. I gave a thin smile. Let them work. In the garage, Avery powered up her body cam, a little beep, then read the time and scope. Garage, foyer, laundry, shoe closet, storage shelves. We'll start with your tool chest, she said. Gloves on, photos from 4 angles. Locks popped. Every tray examined. Torres narrated each step for the record. Nothing. The tape lay flat, pliers aligned, dust even. Avery nodded. We'll check the bags you carry day to day. I handed over my old backpack, wallet, grocery tote. Nothing. Avery turned. Under the warrant, we'll expand to the entryway, laundry, mudroom, and shoe storage. Kyle spread his hands and smiled. Go ahead. I saw him messing around in the garage all morning. She moved down the hall, opened the shoe closet, glanced through the laundry, and stopped at the mudroom. The soccer bag leaned against the wall, zipper closed neat. She took a full shot, then a close one, read the time, and said, Item is within the search area. Opening. The zipper slid. A black wrap bundle surfaced, then a clear zip bag. White powder under warm light looked like cloudy water. Avery didn't gasp. She slipped the bag into an evidence pouch, sealed it, signed the seam, read the time. Torres finished the log. Seal complete. Behind us, Kyle's knees softened. His pupils blew wide. He swallowed. It's not mine, he whispered. Avery kept her voice neutral. We'll continue to collect related evidence. I suggested the doorbell footage. She nodded. We pulled it up. Short clips, all recent. Kyle carrying the exact same bag in and out, sometimes with two friends, timestamps plain as day. The camera caught a frayed stitch on the left handle. Avery saved a representative clip as Exhibit A. She opened the bag's lining and found a name tag stitched in black. Kyle. She asked to review the soccer group chat. Kyle stared at the floor. Torres handled the phone, screenshot a photo of the bag on the high school field along with a couple of jokes about stinky cleats after practice. Exhibit B. When the cuffs clicked, the sound was sharp. Kyle turned to me, eyes raw like he hadn't slept. "You did this," he panted. "I didn't do anything except put everything where it belonged," I said. No heat, no volume, just a shadow of sadness. Avery walked him out. Torres sat at my kitchen table for 10 minutes, read me my rights as a cooperating party, and explained how to provide anything else. I signed the report, Tom Carter, steady on the line. At the door, Avery paused. "You've cooperated appropriately," she said, steady gaze. "Change your locks, install a key box. If anyone shows up asking for a signature, call your attorney first." When they left, the house felt hollowed out. The back door eased shut. The hinge springs sang a thin note. I stood in the kitchen with the refrigerator hum, the neighbor's toast drifting in, and my red case file cracked halfway open. I slid the fresh report inside. Mark came by that night with an apple pie and a thermos of coffee. We kept the ceiling light off, letting the warm cone above the sink stand in for comfort. "I'd say you've got enough," Mark said, pouring. "Exhibit A, Exhibit B, the name tag, within warrant scope, body cam, chain of custody. The rest is on the DA." "I heard him call Victor and Nate," I said. "He talked about the house, about the car." "The DA will save that for motive," Mark replied. "Tomorrow, new locks, key box, switch your mailing address if you need to. And, say it with me, don't sign anything." I laughed, tired. All my life I've signed machine repair slips, and now I'm afraid of my own signature. "That's life," he shrugged. "The wrong signature is worse than a loose bolt." The court summons arrived faster than I expected. The courtroom was cold, benches hard. Kyle looked smaller in an orange jumpsuit. He wouldn't meet my eye. He stared at some imaginary point by his shoe. The prosecutor laid it out clean, then moved to motive. The defendant pressured his father to sell his car. He referenced the family home as something he could control. After attempting to plant contraband in his father's tool chest, he phoned in a report to remove the one person who actually had authority over the house and the car. The defense spoke of pressure, of youth, of a mother's death sending Kyle into a slide. I listened without judgment, but I could still hear Kyle's own words through a door. "Once I take care of the old man, I'll get the house and the car." That sentence was colder than any argument. The judge asked if Kyle wanted to speak. He stood, voice thick. He apologized, said he was confused, said he never meant for it to go that far. I watched his hands, tiny ones, gripping my shirt when he learned to walk, now trembling over empty air. I didn't feel hate, just a tiredness old men recognize. The gavel cracked. Sentence entered. I don't remember every word. I remember standing, tucking the red folder under my arm, and walking into the hall. Mark was there, hands in his pockets, head cocked. "You okay?" "I'm upright," I said. "That'll do." The next day I cleaned the garage, emptied the shelves, wiped the bins, scrubbed the dark rust blooms. I switched my mail to a new box, updated my address with the bank, utilities, insurance. I wrote Kyle a letter at the jail. "Son, I won't be visiting for now. If there's something to say, write it. I'll read it. When you're ready to accept responsibility, we'll meet. Until then, I need peace." That afternoon, I stopped by the cemetery where my wife rests. I brought a small bunch of daisies. Sunlight poured over the stones like fresh polished steel. I told her a little. I tried. Sometimes I was slow. Sometimes love fooled me. But I kept the house and the car and the tools. I kept our boundary. A dry leaf tumbled down the steps. I bent and moved it aside. A few weeks later, Avery called. Same crisp manner. Mr. Carter, quick update. The case is filed. We're moving to enforcement. If you need any certified copies, let me know. Thank you, I said. Anything you want me to keep in mind? One thing, she said after a beat. Don't feel guilty for defending yourself within the law. If this hadn't stopped at your house, it would have rolled into someone else's. I hung up and stood still a long minute. Her words felt like a well-insulated switch. Solid, safe. I finished the garage on a Sunday morning. Each piece went back by muscle memory. Pliers beside pliers, tape stacked, meter laid flat, voltage tester standing in a metal cup. The tool chest in its old spot, lock turned inward. On top, my work light lay like a bright brick. I pressed a palm to it. Cool, smooth, sure. Around noon, my neighbor Dorothy brought over more cookies. Have some, she said. Helps with the blues. I smiled and took the box. I'm not blue, I said. Just tired. She squinted, kind. Then sit and think. Just don't think so long the cookies go cold. I sat and took a bite. Crisp, just sweet enough, butter sneaking into the room. My lungs finally let a fuller breath out. In my head, I made a short list. Replace the kitchen bulb, sand and paint the handrail, swap the rubber doorstop. Small jobs, but the kind you can count on. I wrote them into a pocket notebook and chuckled. People don't live by court dates. They live by the tiny fixes that keep doors from slamming. Late that night, I opened my email. A message from Kyle, shaky letters, awkward sentences. He apologized, said he was scared, asked if I'd come visit. I put my hands on the keys, then pulled back, poured a glass of water, stepped onto the back porch where the dark was cold but kind. Crickets, damp earth after the hose. Back at the table, I typed slow. I've read your note. I hope you learn what took me a lifetime to understand. Boundaries are what keep a person on the straight path. When you're ready to tell the truth and accept responsibility, I'll listen. Until then, email only. Send. The window closed. Night thickened. I switched off the porch light and turned the deadbolt. Boundaries, responsibility, peace, I told the old wood of the door. The work light on the tool chest threw one last glint and went dark. Everything in its place. Next morning, I drove around the lake. The water ran gray-green, wind wrinkling it like brushed steel. I parked and sat with the silence. From my shirt pocket, I took an old photo. Kyle at 12, grinning by the goal, soccer cleats caked in mud. I ran a thumb along the edge and felt my chest open and close. I don't know where he'll go from here. I only know I did my part. I tightened the loose bolt on my own house. I wrapped the exposed wire. Back home, I set the red folder on the table and slid in a fresh page. Things to replace, corners to touch up, a small square for small plans. I flipped on the new kitchen light, white and steady, no flicker. I stood in my kitchen and listened to the fridge purr, the clock tick, a neighbor's faucet turn. Ordinary sounds making a kind of music. Somewhere Kyle will have to rebuild the hardware of his own life. I can't do that for him. I can only stand my ground, open the door to what's decent, and close it to what could burn my house down. That's my choice. It'll be my choice tomorrow and the next day until these hands can't turn a lock. I shut the kitchen light and walked to the garage, lifted the lid of the chest just a hair. In that soft dark, the tools lay still like a crew off shift. I set the work light back in its spot and heard metal kiss metal. I smiled, closed the lid, and turned the lock. The click was neat and final. Somewhere inside me, another door settled shut. Not painful, just firm. I climbed the stairs and left the darkness to rest below, like a shop after a proper service. Tomorrow I'll call Mark for breakfast. We'll talk about the season, about the new kitchen light, about the pie from the corner place. We won't talk about court unless we have to. I wrote this story with stamps and screws. The rest is living. And I've still got a lot of small, certain work to do. If you like this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts on this story in the comments. Each of your likes, shares, and subscriptions is a great motivation for me to continue writing the next stories. Thank you for listening, goodbye, and see you again.